students to online horror sci-fi class number 5. It's the doorbell. Hold on a second.
$15.
$15? Hold on a second. Any of you got change? Oh.
Thanks a lot.
This means we have a fresh, delicious night of Italian horror films. Yes, I've got my fresh extra anchovies, or alicia, for you Italians. I've got my Italian horror films. I've got my espresso. And there she is. Il gatto Zilla. Yes, il gatto Zilla. Mwah. You say hello to everybody? Hello, il gatto Zilla. Yes, that was not my hit. Because today, our horror films all come from Italia. Hey, buongiorno. A little bit different. Normally I go with the American films, but because your teacher is Vincenzo Guargenti and he wants to teach you all things international, some things international, I'm going to talk about the Italians. The Italiano films. Molto bene. Yes, Giallo films. They were called Giallo films because there were these sleazy kind of crime novels that were really popular just after World War II. And they always had a yellow cover. And Giallo means yellow in Italian. So that's where the name comes from. And they were very influential with other filmmakers. As you watch them, you'll see why. Thing about Giallo films, first off, the themes. They're always sleazy sex, a lot of Catholic religion, of course, Italian, and they combine this with fashion photography. A handful of the filmmakers were fashion photographers, and their horror movies look gorgeous. And this is because at the time, the fashion industry, I guess it still is now, I don't know too much about fashion, but definitely in the 50s, all that was coming out of Milan. So that's where all the photographers were. And when they started making these movies, these guys know how to shoot stuff. I gotta do the Italian. I'm gonna be using the hands a lot because that's how Italians talk. I can make fun of Italians because I am one. Okay, it was a lot of these films had to do with fashion photography, murder, and mystery. Sometimes with a hint of supernatural elements, with a dash of Freudian psychology. Italians love the work of Alfred Hitchcock, and they stole from him like crazy. Cucco le Banz, crazy. Il Pazzo, crazy. And teach you a little bit of Italian. The early Giallo films almost always featured a masked killer that a detective or somebody had to figure out the identity of by the end of the movie. He always wore like black gloves, had a mask on and a hat, and that person was always killing people, and somewhere by the last act, they figure out who it is. And it's always a surprise ending. Italian Giallo films are definitely a product of where they come from. Aside from the religious aspects, the place. If you've ever been to Italy, and I highly suggest you go if you haven't, if you ever go to Italy, give me a call because I know where the good gelato is in Rome. If you've ever been there, there's a sense of being in a place that's very, very ancient. The cities are hundreds of years old, not like America, where everything's relatively new. I mean, America's only a little over 200 years old. Everything here is new. In Italy, you could be living in a home that's been lived in for generations upon generations, for hundreds of years. The architecture, everything is constantly reminding you of how old things are. And it gives you a sense of life and death that I think Americans don't have. I think it has that weird presence to it of it being ancient. If you see the paintings at a place like the Duomo, which is an old basilica, I think that was in Rome. I'll throw up some pictures. Really gruesome stuff, and it's religious. There's the Capuchin monks. The Capuchin monks, I'll show you some pictures here. There you go. The Capuchin monks, when you die as a Capuchin monks, they take the skin off your bones and make art with it. And they have, in the Capuchin monks cathedral, they have a clock made with actual skeletons and spines and stuff. And there's a saying underneath it. I don't know what it says in Italian, but it translates to, what we are now, you will be. So there's just a constant reminder of death around you. And I think that permeates Italian culture, and it's great for horror movies. Really. Now, when you watch these films, the plots and acting are usually terrible. Actors are from other countries learning their lines phonetically and dubbed poorly in English. But once again, it's style that more than makes up for it. It's gratuitous sex and violence amped up so much that it's almost not offensive. It just plays on that Roman Catholic guilt, and it's almost got this kind of voyeuristic eroticism to watching bad things happen, watching people get killed. It's just it plays on the fact that you're watching this because you want to see somebody murdered, and isn't that wrong that you want to see somebody murdered? It's kind of like watching a dirty movie or something. You're not supposed to be watching it, but everybody watches it. Get it? It has that weird feel to it. The violence in these films is very visceral. It's personal. It's got that shared experience with the audience that I talked about in class before, where, people just don't, it's just not a shoot 'em up or anything like that. Most people haven't been shot, but everybody's gotten cut or stabbed or broke a bone, and that's where it gets you. The Italians love to play around with that. Oh, hey, Italians like knives. Lots of stabbing, and they show it for a long amount of time. Just gruesome stuff. Cut bone, breaking bones, drowning, all things that are easily relatable as far as we've all kind of had an experience that's close to that, just not to the point of death. Over the years, as the films went on, the body counts got bigger and bigger, and the deaths more elaborate. People boiled alive, tacked to a table with a knife. I can, off the top of my head, think of at least 6 films with people getting their eyes gouged out, and there's another 5 with a blind person getting attacked by their dog. That happens. There's a movie called Suspiria, which I think is like the best, most well-known Italian Giallo. In that, somebody gets strung with a wire thrown through a skylight, and another person falls into a room full of barbed wire, as if there's just rooms full of barbed wire around. Some of the deaths are just ridiculous. As the genre progressed in the 70s and 80s, Italy and Euro filmmakers, I'll extend that to Spain. A lot of these filmmakers kind of moved over to Spain. There's a big crossover because it's really easy to film in Spain. They did a lot of the old Italian westerns there, what they would call spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood. Well, these guys saw a chance to sell to the American market that was making lots of money with grindhouse films and exploitation films. Sometimes they would rename the movies and sell them again. So sometimes if you're looking for an Italian movie, it might have like 3 or 4 different names aside from its Italian name. They just repackaged them. I remember once there was a movie, it was a zombie movie, and Planet of the Apes was big at the time. And they shot an opening with a spaceship lands and an ape gets out, and he sees a dead body and he says, "Oh, this is where the zombies were." And then they cut to the zombie movie, and they sold it as like a third sequel to Planet of the Apes. Remember, America has copyrights on things. You know, if a movie company like Sony makes a movie, they own the copyright to whatever, the Avengers or whatever. But in Europe and China, they don't care. There is no copyright. There's no... You could just make a sequel to a movie that has nothing to do with anything. Look up Turkish Star Wars. It's insane. There's like just shots from Star Wars and a Turkish guy in a cave somewhere, and there's a robot, and they cut to the Death Star, and then they go back to Turkey, and there's a guy with a mustache. But anyway, I digress. As zombie movies in the late 70s became big, the Giallo guys hopped on that bandwagon. Later Giallo films had zombies, witches, and demons. They were all jumping on the Dawn of the Dead bandwagon, especially as these grindhouse movies were selling, and they were figuring, oh, we got to have more stuff. And then it really starts amping up as to what they did. Some films were just end-to-end gore. Just no plots, and this surreal style of filmmaker that turned the films into celluloid nightmares. It was just, stuff would just happen. All of a sudden, they'd have a thin plot of, oh, we got this house, and it's over a gate to hell, and zombies show up, and no, there's a bottle of acid that gets poured on somebody, and somebody gets their eye gouged out, and there's a killer, but it's not a killer, it's a ghost, it's a zombie, it's stuff's happening, and it's an hour and a half of just stuff. But, once again, it's style. It looks really, really cool, and it really... Their idea is it's a nightmare. It's like a bad dream. Every one of these movies is just a celluloid bad dream. And it really bakes in that idea. And Americans took from that, if you look at something like Phantasm. Dawn of the Dead was produced by Dario Argento, an Italian filmmaker, and he actually produced a lot of the George Romero stuff. So there is a big crossover, but it has that weird nightmare feel to it. Okay, now I'm going to teach you about the main Giallo Italian horror filmmakers. Mario Bava, Dario Argento, Simere Meri. Okay, first off, cappuccino. Salute. Okay, first one. Just because he's the oldest one and he was around the longest, he started in the 50s and then worked well into the, 70s. His name was Mario Bava. His films are very atmospheric. His best films are Black Sunday, Blood and Black Lace, Twitch of the Death Nerve, Black Sabbath, which, Black Sabbath got their name from that. They saw that movie playing at a movie house and said, oi, you should name up things Black Sabbath. That sounds Australian, that doesn't sound British. And that one has actually Boris Karloff in it. House of Exorcism, Kaltiki, the Immortal Monster, and Hatchet for a Honeymoon. All this stuff has really, some of it's in black and white, some of it's in color, and he's got this weird, gritty kind of gothic-looking color to it. He did one of the first slasher films, which is amazing. His son Lamberto Bava, made some good films. I highly suggest, if you want to see something just batshit crazy, check out a film called Demons. It's even a Demons 2. It's a bunch of people trapped in a movie theater, and there's demons that come out of the movie and start contaminating people in the movie theater. It is over the top. Weird thing is, if you watch that, just keep in mind that when I watched it, I saw it in a movie theater that looked like that movie theater on 42nd Street. That was creepy and full of junkies. But anyway, the secret word is pizza. Yeah, go for an Italian word. That's an Italian word, right? Pizza. Another Italian Giallo horror master is Lucio Fulci. Lucio Fulci, his films are gore from end to end. They're just El Pazzo, crazy, just stuff. He's one of those filmmakers. Every movie has somebody getting their eyes gouged out. I don't know what it is about that he likes doing that. Who knows? Met the guy in college, a little short guy. He said to me, "Hey, Vincenzo, I make $1 million, I lose $1 million, I do not care." He used to eat onions like they were apples. Weird guy. Met him when I was making my senior thesis called Satan's Toaster. No, you can't see it. His best film is The Beyond. It's about a hotel built on a doorway to hell. It's supposed to be in New Orleans, which it isn't. It's kind of interesting. They shoot most of these movies in Italy, but they do the occasional, hey, let's fly over to America, shoot some outside stuff, go out for dinner, and then go back and cut that part in. He does a movie called Zombie, spelled Zombi, for whatever reason, or Zombie 2, because in Italy, they made believe it was a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. It's got a scene of a zombie fighting a shark. A real shark. Zombie versus shark. How could you go wrong? They really have a guy in a zombie suit underwater fighting a shark. I don't know where they got the shark. They had some shark with no teeth, and they got a guy underwater, and yep, that happened. Recommend that one. What's interesting about some of his movies is he could only afford to put makeup on some of the zombies in front. The rest of the other people, he hired, whoever was around, homeless people, whatever, put mud on them and said, go like this. And they're in the background. But once again, very atmospheric and just crazy. Other movies by him, House by the Cemetery, New York Ripper, Gates of Hell, Never Torture a Duckling. No, never do that. Never torture a duckling. Cat in the Brain. Yeah, there's a part where there's a cat in a skull. Yeah, whatever, go with it. Demonia, which has evil nuns. Nuns are evil, especially the ones in the brown habits. When I went to Catholic stuff, they're like ninjas, the brown nuns. They got the big, yardstick. They can get you from across the room. Hey! You'll learn your catechism with the brown nuns. Touch of Death, The Red Monks, Murder Rock, which, if you like 80s metal and murder and monsters, it's over the top. And Enigma is another one. All this stuff is pretty all over online. Tubi has a ton of them. If you have Shudder, they're all over the place. You can find this stuff. And the best known Italian horror director is Dario Argento. He's best known for Suspiria. Suspiria is a remarkable film. Don't watch the remake. The remake's okay, but his movie is game-changing. Whenever that's usually the one I show in class. Whenever I show it, everybody loves it. Suspiria is just great. It's like Alice in Wonderland if there was witches and lots of stabbing. Colors are so saturated, it's like getting hit in the face with a clown. The music is by Dario Argento's prog rock band Goblin. And the music is so intense, it turns this movie into this weird, nightmarish, hour-long music video. It's really, really trippy. The music is so popular that the band actually goes on tour and plays along with the movie. If you like the movie and you like the music, see where they're playing. I guarantee you they're going to come around some point. Go see them. It's really a trip to see a movie with a band playing in front of it. Oh. And if you want to be truly, truly, truly disturbed and see something really scary and just nightmarish, Dario Argento there was a show called Masters of Horror. You could find it. Just do a search online. It's called Masters of Horror. And he did an hour-long episode of that entitled Jennifer. Probably the most disturbing thing I've ever shown to a class. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but watch it, and then talk to me. Because this movie is... if you're able to, watch the extras. Because Dario Argento directed the whole movie without speaking English, through an interpreter and just kind of waving his hands around. There's one scene that they cut out, and they were like... And he couldn't understand why they cut the scene out. He's like, oh, it was beautiful. There was this monster and this thing, and it did this. And as he describes what he cut out of the movie, you go, oh, that's why they cut it out. Like after you saw this movie and said, oh my God, that's horrifying, you're going to go, wait, there was something worse that they took out? Really. Dario Argento. Trust me. So list of Dario Argento films. There's Profondo Rosso. For those of you who speak British, it's also titled Deep Red. That's one that'll creep you out. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. The Cat O' Nine Tails. Four Flies on Grey Velvet. Phenomenon, or Creepers. Opera. Dario Argento's Trauma. Mother of Tears, which is one of 3 sequels from Suspiria, because it's about these 3 witches. Tenebrae, or Unsane, and Inferno. Argento is one of those guys who worked in fashion photography, so all of his stuff has just beautiful fashion models and other stuff. You can see where that's where he gets a lot of his ideas from. Okay, so your homework, which is due Monday, April 20th. Once again, tell me what movie you watched. I'll say I have no idea what you're talking about. Put your name in there so I know who you are. Give me the secret word. You know what it is. And, it's due April 20th. Your questions are, number 1, what is the theme of the film? Back up your answers with examples from the film. If the theme is well, it's that theme because this happened in the movie. Next question. What in the film is part of the Giallo genre? What I was talking about the things that are always happening in Italian horror films, well, pick one of those out and describe it to me and say, oh, remember you said there's always a masked killer? Well, the masked killer did this in this movie. Or this thing is about Catholicism, or this thing is about an ancient place, or the techniques. Remember, the techniques are color, weird camera angles, stuff like that. So talk about that and mention that. Question number 3, what in this film is different than an American film? Why is it different? Is there something that stands out in the way the filmmaking was done, in the style of the filmmaking that was done, that you never see in American stuff? Or, another question that you could answer if this is more relevant, is this film something that an American film stole from? There's a lot of stuff that are in Italian Giallo films crosses over into stuff that you've seen in American films. Send those questions along, and ciao.